Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation from HostingController, which is a cloud automation platform. Today's presentation is about a solution that evolves data centers into managed service providers. So let us see how that happens. A little bit about our company. We are a software company and we provide hosting automation products since 1999. We have a customer base of around 2,000 hosting companies in around 125 countries worldwide. For the last decade or so, we specialize in automation of Microsoft enterprise products. That includes Microsoft Exchange, Active Directory, Skype for Business, SharePoint, Hyper-V, and some other products. So let us see how the data center business is evolving over the last many years. The first generation of data centers would just provide the infrastructure. Infrastructure would include some compute, storage, and networking resources, and they will offer this infrastructure either as a co-location where people can put their own compute systems in the racks, or they can just offer some dedicated servers already installed in the racks for the customers. And that was a very basic product offering that the data centers had. Then came virtualization technologies, and that evolved those data centers to become a second generation data center. In that case, the infrastructure was already there, but now the data centers could offer virtual machines based on the virtualization technology provided by companies like VMware and Hyper-V. And that would enable them to offer virtual private server hosting, and they would put some applications onto those servers. But most of the time, those applications were plain vanilla operating systems of either Linux or Windows, or some basic application templates like MySQL or WordPress or something. But what's important is that the second generation data center applications were largely unmanaged. They would just instantiate the application and give it to the customer, and the customer will be free to choose any other management tools that it wants to manage their own applications. And in that model, HostingController still have a product that the data centers people use. And what it does is that it evolves those virtual machines to become managed virtual machines. And the data center installs its own instance of HostingController, and the HostingController then offers a GUI dashboard for all of their customers to be able to do their use cases using the GUI dashboard. And we also offer some control APIs that some more developer savvy customers can use to automate their use cases. What happens here is that those virtual machines are now managed. Users can come to the GUI dashboard and they can, for example, instantiate a new virtual machine from the given templates. But the templates in this case are raw templates, which means either Linux or OS templates, right? Linux OS templates or Windows OS templates or some unmanaged applications, as I said, from WordPress, MySQL, and any other thing. A user will still be able to do the use cases available at the virtualization level. That, for example, includes upsizing and downsizing their virtual machines, creating and purging them, taking snapshots of their virtual machines, and so on. That was the second generation of data center, and they could also use HostingController product at their level. The new evolution in the data center space is now taking the data center up and up the value chain, and it's allowing them to install and offer managed applications. That is in addition to whatever they were doing with the unmanaged application. They can now offer some managed applications. And the HostingController product is enabling them to do that, to become evolved managed service providers. So in nutshell, what's happening is that they are going beyond infrastructure hosting to managed application hosting through automation provided by HostingController. Let's see how that happens. In this second model of the managed application hosting, the data center has its own instance of HostingController, which is used to manage the virtual machines at the data center level. And every customer has its own instance of HostingController that those customers use to manage their own instances of applications. That makes all of those applications as managed applications. So in addition to the unmanaged templates that the data center was offering, now the data center also offers some managed application templates which are provided by HostingController, and they have the technology built into those templates that will allow their customers to manage themselves automatically. Those templates typically include templates for website and web applications automation, where the websites are hosted either on Windows IIS web server or Linux Apache web server. It has automation for different databases, including MySQL and SQL Server. It has automation for hosting DNS server either on Windows or Linux, hosting email servers either on Windows or Linux. And most importantly, it has automation for Microsoft enterprise applications that includes Active Directory, Exchange, SharePoint, remote desktop services, and so on. So let us see some of the scenarios how customers can use these managed applications to conduct their business. In this customer scenario one, the customer is using HostingController to have managed web applications. So the customer has its own instance of HostingController, and then it has one or more virtual private servers which are hosting the web server and other related server that the customer needs. They would typically include a web server either on Linux or Windows, one or more database servers, and some DNS servers and email servers. So let's compare the two scenarios, what happens when the applications are unmanaged and when they are managed by a tool like HostingController. If the applications were unmanaged, they will be instantiated from the library that the data center offers, and the library will create an instance of a web server, a DNS server, an email server, and a database server, possibly on different virtual machines. If a customer has to conduct some of the use case, for example, creating a new website, they have to go and do it manually through all these steps that it has to have. But from the HostingController perspective, they can go and they will be offered a form, and they just fill in the form, and then the HostingController will conduct all the automation that is needed to create that website. So just taking an example of a website, what the customer needs to conduct at least 300 different steps to be able to correctly configure the website. That includes creating the website in the Linux or Windows web server, setting its security permissions, creating some of the user accounts, creating some of the security settings correctly for those user accounts to be able to access those web applications, then going into the database and creating some of the databases in the database server, then again creating some user accounts and giving proper security permission and rights to those user accounts so that the web server can connect them, and then creating the connection strings between the web application and the database correctly. And that will also involve making changes to some of the DNS records so that the people can correctly access the website, whether it's a static website or a dynamic website. People should be able to actually access those DNS servers. And if the email has to run on those domains as well, then the customer has to go and create those email accounts in the email server using whatever scripting language is available on the email server. So this is the unmanaged scenario. If it was all managed, then the customer just logs into the HostingController through the GUI dashboard or through the APIs provided, and it just gives whatever the information it has, like the domain name and other things. And then the HostingController through automation will continue to execute all these steps until the website is correctly configured. That's one of the main use cases that we have, like more than 2,000 customers in the world. They use it for this purpose. Their customers are super happy because they are able to create their websites without knowing any of the technical details of how the website is created and maintained. So let's see customer scenario 2, where an enterprise customer has a cluster of Microsoft enterprise applications. A typical cluster will have at least 2 Active Directory servers, which are shown here, at least 2 Exchange servers, which are shown here, and some other SharePoint servers or other servers for other related applications. And many times they will have like more such servers. And then if they do not have any automation provided by HostingController or other such tool, then they are on their own to log into those servers through the root level access, and then their IT teams will conduct all the use cases that they need. But if they happen to have such a tool like HostingController, then the IT teams need not log into any of these servers through the root level access. They are offered GUI menus and APIs where normal users can just go and enter their credentials and other data, and HostingController will conduct all of those use cases. In this scenario, use cases involve like bringing a new employee on board, in which case some of the user accounts need to be created here on Active Directories, his mailbox need to be created here. Different settings have to be made at different parts, especially with SharePoint and all other things. And the HostingController will offer them such things. HostingController now also offers a hybrid model where some of the things are in the cloud, like in Microsoft 365, and some other on-premises applications are running, like Exchange and AD are still on-premise. Different types of configurations are supported, but what's important is that the customers now Once the hosting controller is there, their IT teams need not log into any of these servers through the root level access and do anything. They just need to mention what they want, what they want to do to the hosting controller, and hosting controller will do it for them. Let us see another more complicated scenario of customer 3 for a large enterprise. They typically want a lot of redundancy in the system, and it could be geo redundancy. So this large enterprise has one hosting controller instance here and another one is here. It could be offered by the same data center, or it could be some other data center. And they have a primary SQL server and a secondary SQL server, primary Active Directory, second Active Directory, primary Exchange, secondary Exchange. And a lot of work is being done by hosting controller if it's available. If it's not available, then typically a large enterprise needs to have a full team of IT people who manage their clusters of enterprise applications. So let us see how does it change the product offering from the data center. The previous generation data center would be offering these top two offerings, some Linux VPS based on CentOS, Debian, Ubuntu, or other variant of Linux, or some Windows VPS, or some other applications. The typical price in that level is $2 to $3 per core per month. That's how typically data centers charge. Some of them may be charging hourly, but in the end, it comes to the same thing that they are trying to charge per core per month and separately for the storage. But once the hosting controller product is there, they get into the domain of managed application hosting. Every customer has to have its own instance of hosting controller that's typically priced at $20 per core per month. And then there are applications related to websites and web applications that include databases, DNS servers, email servers, and many other such applications. They are typically priced at $25 per core per month. And then there are some other applications from Microsoft which are called enterprise applications. For them, the customer actually needs to have a license from Microsoft as well, or from the data center. And those applications, if they are managed, they are typically priced at $32 per month, plus minus, depending on the data center and the geography. So in this scenario, one payment mechanism is that those customers, they continue to pay to the data center, and then that payment also includes all of these applications as different line items, which the Microsoft virtualization module will inform the data center which virtual machines are being used by which customer, so they can add it into their existing invoices. The customers pay to the data center, and the data center then pays to hosting controller for all the instances which are there. Alternately, the data center can just offer unlicensed applications to their customers, and then the customers, if they like it, after the 30 days evaluation is complete, they can come to our website and purchase the license themselves. In this case, the data center is not involved in the payment stream, but they are still adding some value to their offering by offering these managed DNS managed applications. So these are the two scenarios where the data center can offer and add value to its existing offerings. So that was about the applications which are running in the data center. Some of the enterprise applications like Microsoft Exchange have a very large on-premise existing install base. And those install base is either moving to the public cloud, or they need to be moved into some data centers in their own countries. In that scenario, we do have tools to migrate those on-premise instances to the data centers. If it's possible to do a cutoff migration where the data is backed up and it's restored on the data center, then we don't need to have any tools. But in some scenarios, especially Microsoft Exchange, it's not possible to do that because the mailboxes are running live and the migration can take weeks to months because of terabytes of data involved. And the enterprise would like to have their on-premise exchange continue to work with the data center exchange as long as they feel satisfied with it. So we do have tools that will allow such coexistence between their on-premise exchanges and their data center exchanges. And it can go for weeks to months. And once the organization is satisfied, they can retire their on-premise and just run through the data center. So this is the long and short of what the hosting controller offers for the automation of managed applications. We are a Canadian company with office in Ontario, Canada. You can contact us on the numbers which are available on the screen now. Thank you for today. See you later.